The gleaming glass facade of the Sutton Keen Corporation's headquarters cut sharply against the pale, blue morning sky, catching the rising sun in brilliant flashes of gold and silver. The building stood as a symbol of wealth and power, its mirror-like windows hiding the grinding machinery within a billion-dollar enterprise built on ambition, dominance, and fear. Inside, marble floors stretched endlessly underfoot, polished so aggressively that they reflected every hurried step with a faint, ghostly shimmer. Employees moved swiftly through the lobby and corridors, heads down, eyes averted, clutching briefcases and coffee cups as if bracing against an invisible storm. And in many ways, they were. The storm had a name: Damien Cross. As Chief Operating Officer, Damien was not merely influential, he was feared. His reputation as a ruthless, arrogant executive was known even outside the industry. Inside Sutton Keen, he was almost mythological in his cruelty. Promotions, demotions, firings, all were dealt with according to his mercurial whims. Respect, in Damien's mind, was a commodity reserved solely for power, not people. Titles mattered. Humanity did not. That particular morning was charged with an unusual tension. The quarterly board review was scheduled, a meeting where department heads would parade their achievements, sir. More often, their failures before Damien's razor-sharp critiques. Public humiliation was as expected as the catered coffee. No one was immune. As Damien strode towards the executive conference room, a tailored charcoal gray suit molding his tall, lean frame, he passed by a figure he barely noticed, a woman in her mid-50s, kneeling to polish the glass doors of the entrance. She wore a simple navy blue uniform, her salt and pepper hair tied neatly back, her motions efficient and unobtrusive. He paused, sneering audibly enough for those around to hear. "Can't even keep the damn doors clean? What are we paying you for?" His voice was a lash, sharp and dismissive. The woman straightened slowly, meeting his disdain with an expression of calm, so unwavering it bordered on defiant. "Good morning, sir," she said, voice low but firm. Damien rolled his eyes dramatically, letting out a loud, exaggerated sigh. "Save it. Just don't embarrass us when the Real guests arrive." A few nervous chuckles rose from the younger employees trailing behind him, eager to show allegiance through mockery. Damien smirked, pleased, and moved on without another glance. The woman returned to her task, her hand steady on the cloth, unaffected by the small, brittle laughter that echoed briefly before dying in the sterile marble corridor. Minutes later, the conference room buzzed with suppressed anxiety. Projectors hummed to life. Leather portfolios snapped open. Executives adjusted ties and smoothed skirts, stealing glances at the heavy double doors. Damien took his usual seat at the head of the long oak table, spreading out his notes like a king ready to judge his court. The CEO of Sutton Keen, a dignified man named Gerald Langford, entered with two sharply dressed men in tow. The room rose respectfully to its feet, a wave of rehearsed deference passing through the ranks. Gerald motioned them to sit. "Before we begin," he said, voice resonant and calm, "we have someone very important joining us today." Damien leaned toward the man next to him, an oily smirk on his lips. "Let me guess, another overpriced consultant wasting our morning." The man chuckled dutifully. The doors swung open. In walked the janitor, or rather, the woman they had assumed to be a janitor. But now she wore a tailored navy blue suit that fit her with quiet precision, her hair pinned into a smooth chignon, her posture commanding. She did not hesitate. She walked straight to the head of the table, the CEO's side, and took the seat directly across from Damien Cross. Whispers hissed across the room like a brush fire. Confused glances were exchanged. Damien's smirk faltered. His eyes narrowed, calculating. Gerald cleared his throat. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet Dr. Eleanor Hayes, Harvard Business School graduate, former senior advisor to the Department of Commerce, and as of last week, our newest board member and investor." Damien's complexion turned an unhealthy shade of gray. Eleanor smiled gently, the expression not so much kind as measured, and placed a thick manila envelope on the table with a soft thwack. Damien forced a laugh, his voice high and brittle. This must be some kind of joke. Eleanor turned her gaze fully upon him, her eyes steady and unblinking. No, Mr. Cross. No joke at all. She opened the envelope and withdrew several neatly organized stacks of papers, spreading them deliberately across the polished surface of the table. Emails, photos, transcripts, recordings. For the past 6 months, Eleanor said, her tone as crisp as autumn air, I've been embedded in this company, observing firsthand how senior leadership treats not just our clients, but our own employees, our people. She held up a printed email exchange in which Damien had belittled the department head over a minor delay in a project timeline, language so coarse it made several attendees visibly shift in their seats. Another document detailed Damien's browbeating of support staff, his manipulation of internal reports to favor his allies, and his casual cruelty in dozens of everyday interactions. The company's legal counsel, a man named Eric Navarro, leaned forward, scanning the documents with growing alarm. His brows furrowed. He adjusted his glasses, then slowly turned his grave face toward Gerald Langford. Damien stood up, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. His voice cracked with outrage. This is slander. You set me up. Eleanor didn't flinch. I treated you exactly the way you treat everyone you consider beneath you, Mr. Cross. The difference is I recorded it. The room went still. Not a cough, not a murmur, only the low, mechanical hum of the projectors. Gerald Langford looked Eleanor in the eye. Your recommendation? He asked, his voice even. Without hesitation, Eleanor replied. Immediate termination of Damien Cross. Mandatory leadership and ethics retraining for all vice presidents, with quarterly reviews conducted by an independent oversight board. A collective gasp fluttered across the room. Damien's eyes darted wildly, searching for support among the executives he had once cowed into submission. Not a single one met his gaze. Security personnel materialized quietly at the back of the room. As they approached, Damien sputtered one last desperate protest. This is an outrage. I've built this company. Eleanor stood slowly, gathering her papers into a neat stack. She faced him squarely. Titles don't define worth, Mr. Cross. Character does. Damien hesitated at the doorway, looking back one last time at the empire he once ruled by fear. But no one spoke for him. No one moved. The door shut behind him with a soft, definitive click. In the silence that followed, Gerald turned to Eleanor and inclined his head. Thank you, Dr. Hayes. Shall we begin? Eleanor nodded once, crisply, and the meeting commenced not with fear, but with a sense of hope. Outside, the marble floors gleamed in the morning sun, unmarred by the hurried footsteps that once carried fear. For the first time in a long time, Sutton Keen was poised not just for profit, but for dignity, for resilience, for genuine strength. And somewhere deep in the building, a freshly cleaned glass door caught the light, scattering it like 1,000 tiny suns across the marble floor, quiet witnesses to the moment everything changed.